Is the Ford Bronco the right vehicle for you? In this video, that's what we're gonna find out. Jared Rosenholtz here with CarBuzz.com, and I've got the new 2021 Ford Bronco, possibly the most hotly anticipated car of the year. And I can tell that the Bronco was hotly anticipated because you can't just walk into a Ford dealership and buy one of these. There's a super long waiting list, so you might not get one until next year. And even when you do get it, you might have to pay a hefty dealer markup. Is it worth it? We're gonna try and answer that question in this video. So in this video, we are going to show you all the pros and cons of living with the Bronco every day to help you make a reasoned purchase decision on whether or not the Bronco is the right vehicle for you. What we're not going to show in this video is any off-roading because we already have that on our first drive review. So if you want to see how the Bronco tackles some off-road stuff, be sure to check out that video. We'll throw a link in the description below, and if you want to read more about the Bronco, you can do so over at CarBuzz.com. Now let's get into the video. Now we're gonna start off with what is probably the biggest pro here on the exterior, how the Bronco looks. This is a seriously cool car, and Ford would not have a long waiting list if it wasn't. I love the front end. It looks totally modern. The grills change a little bit depending on what trim you have. I love how it looks modern and retro all in the same vein. It's really cool how Ford was able to pull that off. And we've got a ton of exciting colors on offer, but I don't think any are as vibrant as this cyber orange paint. I think it really makes the Bronco pop. So the original Bronco only came as a two-door model, but since the Jeep Wrangler does a four-door, Ford also had to do that. And let's be honest, this is the one that people are really gonna buy. It's just a lot more practical. Now, personally, I think the two-door model looks better, and it is the better off-roader with its approach and departure and breakover angles. But I think most people are gonna get this because the back seat is so much more roomy. I actually have a decent amount of room here. Not as good as what you're gonna find on a Ford Explorer, but it is at least usable back here. The back seat of the two-door model can only fit two people, whereas you can fit a full three back here on the four-door model. So if all you're going to be doing is driving your family around in the Bronco, the four-door is going to be the way you want to go, especially when it comes to trunk space. So we've got this really long door that swings out here, and as you can see, we have a pretty decently sized trunk back here. The trunk on the two-door model is a lot smaller, meaning you're not going to be able to fit all of your kids' stuff back there. Now, I mentioned that the two-door is a little bit better off-road, but while we're on the subject, I wanted to talk about the coolest option that we have here on this Bronco, and that is the Sasquatch package. It's called Sasquatch because big feet, big tires, kind of makes sense, right? So we've got these awesome 35-inch tires with beadlock capable wheels. That comes as part of a $5,200 package. Now you get some other stuff with that as well. Front and rear locking differentials, trail turn, other off-road features and such. But I just want to take a moment to talk about how good the Bronco looks with the Sasquatch package. Unless I wasn't going to do any off-roading, I would definitely opt for this package because it just makes the Bronco really look cool on the exterior. And we're gonna wrap up the pros section by talking about the roof and the doors, because the Bronco is one of only two vehicles, the other one being the Wrangler, where you can actually take the doors off and the roof to go completely open cab, which is a really cool thing, which is why it ends up here in the pros section. The reason why I'm not going more in depth is because the way that you take off the roof and doors is actually gonna end up in our con. Now that I've talked about all of the cool stuff that I love on the outside of the Bronco, let's talk about some of the stuff that's not so good. First, we're gonna go back to the Sasquatch package. Now I know I already mentioned this in the pros, but it's also kind of a con. With these large 35-inch tires, it kind of makes the Bronco a bit of a monster truck to get in and out of. You really have to like lift yourself up. So if you're a bit shorter, it's really gonna be difficult to do unless you get the optional running boards. Now I can imagine if you're lifting kids and other stuff into the Bronco, this might be something that would be a little bit of an annoyance on a day-to-day basis. Next is parking. The Bronco is really tall, really long, and really wide. It almost makes a Jeep Wrangler look kind of puny. In its four-door configuration, especially with the Sasquatch package, there is a lot to maneuver in and out of a tight parking spot. Moving on to the cabin, this is not a premium vehicle inside. It's actually quite utilitarian, but in a rather quality, nice way. This is the black diamond trim that we're sitting in. It's one of Ford's many trim levels here on the Bronco. It's actually only 2 up from the base model, so this is far from the nicest Bronco that you're gonna see on the interior, but there is some nice stuff to talk about in here. Let's first start by talking about this 8-inch touchscreen infotainment system. This is the smaller of 2 systems available. You can also get a really large 12-inch screen that looks a lot better, but I think the functionality of this 8-inch screen is actually a little bit easier to use, and it still has a lot of the same great features you'll like CarPlay and Android Auto wireless, as you can see here on the screen. And here on this black diamond trim, you're not gonna have cloth or even leather. You're gonna get this really tough, durable vinyl that Ford says is actually marine grade. Basically, it's waterproof, so if you get stuck in a rainstorm with the roof off, these seats are completely waterproof. They will stand up to whatever abuse your kids are gonna throw at them. So these are actually probably my favorite seats that you can get here on the Bronco. The other thing that I really love is you can get carpeted or rubber floor mats if you want, but the actual floors on the Bronco are made of rubber, and they have these really cool drain plugs. You just pull out the plug, and let's just say you get a ton of mud in here, you can literally just hose it all off and the water will drain right out of the bottom of the car. How clever is that? Okay, so it's not all great in here. We're gonna start by mentioning the roof situation. You can get the Bronco with a cloth top, or you can get one of 2 optional hard top roofs. We've got the molded black plastic roof. There's also a painted roof that you can get, but it is currently delayed. Ford is having a ton of supplier issues with this roof that are delaying it. So you can still get this black plastic roof, but as you're gonna see, we wouldn't necessarily advise you to do so. Our top seems to be fine on the outside, no quality defects or anything that we could detect. We are hearing it squeak just a little bit as we go over rough pavement. It's just something to notice if you're the type of person who wants a really refined, really screwed together experience. And speaking of strange noises, I gotta point out this one that I've noticed while driving the Bronco. There is a whistling, a really irritating whistle that comes from around the mirror housings, and it gets really bad the higher you go. And if you're the type of person who likes to drive with the windows down, you're really gonna notice it. I'm gonna go ahead and drop the window just a little bit to see if you hear it, but it has been driving me crazy all week. Yeah, not great. Now, as we've seen, the Bronco is not the quietest car in the world, but there's a very good reason why. This is one of only a few vehicles where the roof panels do come off. Here on the hardtop model, I'm gonna show you how to do it. You just put down this sun visor right here. You've got this interesting latch right here, and then you've got these 1, 2, 3 of them right here, and once you've done all 4 of those, this roof panel on the driver's side will remove. It's the same process for removing the passenger panel. So here's what it looks like, the driver's side panel. You get another one over on the passenger side that you can take off. Now this rear panel is just one piece, comes off in a very similar way. We do have a handy storage bag back here for these front 2 panels. So if you want to bring those with you, that is quite nice. I found myself just taking off the front panels pretty frequently, but the big panel in the back is a little bit harder to take off, and we don't have a storage bag for that one back here. Now, if you want to go full roofless, here's how you're gonna have to do it. This whole canopy area comes off in one big piece. It's a little bit more complex to take this off than the panels. You've got these bolts all throughout here that you're going to have to undo. Then you and another person are going to have to lift this whole apparatus off of the back here. There is no way to bring this with you, so if you get stranded in the rain without it, you're gonna have to get a little bit wet. Now let's talk about the door situation, because these are a lot harder to take off versus the roof. So if you are going to go doorless, I highly recommend that you go for it over the weekend. You're not gonna wanna be putting these on and off very frequently, because the rear doors weigh 45 pounds. These weigh about 65 pounds. So the decision you make is gonna wanna be a final one for at least a little while. You do get this handy toolkit with a little Bronco on it. We see our little ratchet right here that you could use to take the doors off. And the process isn't too hard. There's basically one bolt right here, another one down there, and then you just pull the wiring harness and the door will lift lift right up. It's a little bit more difficult to access these though. As you can see, they're inside here on the door, whereas a Jeep Wrangler positions its ones on the exterior right here, making them just a little bit easier to get off, in my opinion. Now, Ford does give you a handy guide pin that makes it easier to put these doors back on, but I guess the previous journalist must have lost that because it is not here on our Bronco. They also must have lost the bag that came for the doors, because on this 4-door model, you can fit all 4 doors in that trunk, but since we don't have the bags, I haven't been able to bring the doors with me. Before we start talking about how the Bronco drives, now is the perfect time to remind everybody, leave a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos. Now, back to the Bronco. Now let's get the Bronco out on the road and really iron out whether or not this is the right car for you based on how it drives. And right off the bat, I want to start by saying that if you've driven a Jeep Wrangler, a modern Jeep Wrangler, and absolutely hated that experience, I don't think that the Bronco is so different enough that it's going to win you over. The two vehicles are pretty similar. However, if you did kind of like the Wrangler but wish that it was maybe a little more refined in the handling department, keep watching because maybe the Bronco is the right vehicle for you. The biggest difference here between the Bronco and the Wrangler is this steering system. Whereas the Wrangler has this old reciprocating ball steering, the Bronco actually has racked pinion, which is more like what you'd find in a normal car or SUV. Basically, I can just feel what the front wheels are doing. The Wrangler is very detached and very truck-like. You really have this sort of vagueness that doesn't give you a lot of confidence in the driving experience. This is one area where the Bronco really excels over the Wrangler. Now, we've also got an independent front suspension here on the Bronco, whereas the Wrangler uses a solid front axle. The big difference there is when you go over a bump in the Bronco, the wheels can move independently of each other, whereas on the Wrangler, you kind of hop up in an uncomfortable way. So basically, the Bronco is more comfortable to drive on the road, and the Wrangler is a little bit less livable when you're driving it every day. Now let's talk about the engines. The base option is a 2.3 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged EcoBoost engine. Now that produces 270 horsepower if you run it on regular gas, which is a lot more affordable. But if you're willing to feed it the premium stuff, Ford says you'll be getting 300 horsepower. Now that's more than what you're going to get from the base V6 Pentastar in the Jeep running on regular fuel, and it's more than the optional 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that you can get in the Wrangler. We've got the bigger 2.7 liter twin turbocharged V6, which is about an $1,800 upgrade, and it produces 310 horsepower, so about a 40 horsepower jump over the 4-cylinder engine, but that's if you run it on regular. If you feed it the premium stuff, you'll be getting 330 horsepower and a whopping 410 pound-feet of torque. Now this makes the Bronco extremely gutsy with a ton of get up and go. Unfortunately, it's not as gutsy as the most powerful Wrangler options, that being the plug-in hybrid 4xe and the V8 powered 392 Rubicon. Now this V6 model that we're driving only comes with a 10-speed automatic transmission. It's fine. I think that Jeep's 8-speed is actually a little bit smoother, but if you do get that smaller 2.3 liter engine, you can get a 7-speed manual transmission with a crawler gear. I drove that when I first drove the Bronco in Texas, and I really loved it. Much better than the sloppy manual you get in the Wrangler. So now let's talk cons of the driving experience, and there's not too much to hate here unless you're looking for something that is really quiet, really comfortable, and really refined. This just ain't it. It's just too similar to the Jeep Wrangler for me, at least. So if off-roading and kind of the coolness of this car is not what you're looking for, you're probably better off going with a conventional crossover or SUV. Yes, it's a little better to drive than a Jeep Wrangler, but it's not a completely different vehicle altogether. There are a lot of sacrifices that you're going to have to make when driving a Bronco, and not everybody is going to be willing to make those concessions. One of the biggest concessions you're going to be making is with fuel economy, because even in its most frugal configurations, the Bronco is going to struggle to average over 20 miles per gallon. I can just tell you that I've been driving around this V6 V6 one for over a week, and my fuel economy average is 16.3. Ouch, that's gonna hurt your wallet. And while the Jeep offers a frugal, fuel-sipping diesel model and a plug-in hybrid that can go about 20 miles on electric-only range, we don't have any similar options here on the Bronco, just gas engines, at least for now. Everything we've discussed in this video is really going to be dependent on you and who you are as an individual. I think if you and your family plan to take the Bronco off-road on different adventures, you're going to remove the roof all the time and drive it open top, I think that the Bronco could be worth spending the money on. But if you're the type of person who wants a little bit more refinement, you're never going to go off-roading, you're never going to take the roof off, I think there are definitely some better options out there for you on the market. Now let's talk about pricing and whether or not it's worth it for you to spend the money on a Bronco, because there is a huge spread on what you're going to be paying for one of these. A base two-door Bronco with 0 options starts at $28,500. Not bad, right? Well, our 4-door black diamond trim, which remember is a lower trim level, is $10,000 more. And with just a few options like the bigger engine and the hardtop roof, it gets up to over $48,000. And if you're one of those people who wants to have every single feature on your Bronco, you can option one of these to over 60 grand. But that's just for the Bronco itself. As I mentioned, there is a long waiting list for one of these, and a lot of dealerships are selling them for over sticker price. I've seen buyers pay $10, $20, or even $50,000 over sticker price on a Bronco just to be one of the first to get behind the wheel in their neighborhood. Now, if you're spending that much, we're talking upwards of $100,000 in some cases, I think that you would be better served by a Land Rover Defender. I really hope you've enjoyed this look at the 2021 Ford Bronco and what it's like to live with. If this video helped you make your purchase decision, please let us know about it in the comments. Let us know if you decided to buy a Bronco because of this video, or maybe we talked you out of it into another vehicle. Please let us know what you chose. Again, I'm Jared Rosenholtz. I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video of the 2021 Ford Bronco, please leave a like, hit subscribe, and the notification bell to be alerted of when all of our latest videos go live. And as always, if you want to learn more about the 2021 Ford Bronco, be sure to check out carbuzz.com, link in the description below. I'll see you next time.